hopefully this is doing things and you can hear everything okay. Good morning, or appropriate time zone comment. Hopefully everybody can hear this okay now. I'll just check. Levels seem good for me. Can everybody hear this okay? Hello? Hello? Voice levels okay in the chat? Okay. I will attempt to turn up more volume. Alright. Where are you again? Let's crank this gain up a little bit. So this process will be slightly smoother in future, hopefully. Is that a bit better on the audio levels? I can try and move this mic a little bit closer too. Okay, it's not in the shot. Okay, is that better on audio levels? Just give me a yell in chat if that's okay to hear that. Louder, we can still go up. Alright, I'll see. I'm not 100% sure about this streaming stuff at the moment. I'll crank the level into the mixer. Good. I'll turn me up a little bit. Yeah, I'm still getting it. Ooh, that's much louder. Okay, I have now turned this up to ludicrously loud, so hopefully that is okay. We'll check on guitar levels when we get to that too. Alright, hopefully you can hear all that fine. Maybe it's even louder over here. Hopefully that makes sense. So, yep, got the pedal here. Good. Good to hear it's all going smoothly. So, yeah, I'll be just basically taking questions and then building patches. If there's anything you particularly want to hear. Sorry about all the noise my shed makes. Because of COVID, I'm actually working out of the shed in the back garden, so it is a little noisy. I'll just be running through the basics of how to set up a few different patches. If there's any particular questions you've got, I have a few that people have asked beforehand, so I'll run through those. Otherwise, whatever you want to. Yeah, whatever you want to hear. So I'll start off with some of the basics, and then we'll try and, if I get any questions particularly, we'll answer them. So yeah, just give me a yell if there's any issues, anything you can't see, or hopefully I'll attempt to get through. So I've got it set up to the Beebo firmware at the moment, but running on a digit. That's one of the most frequent questions I get, is how to switch between the two, and if there's any hardware differences between the two. There's not. They both have the same hardware inside. They're both identical apart from the look of them. They just run different firmware, and yes, you can switch between the firmware on both. If I put my little ESD straps on, I can grab one of the boards. So yeah, I solder things here, so I have one of the boards here. So they both have the same boards inside them. Which are these little guys. Now put back. So yeah, that's same hardware inside, so you can switch between the two. I'll just show you how to do that. We just go into settings, and you'll see there's a button here that says change to digit. And now it will change over to digit, and we have a patch loaded there. One of the other regular questions is how to change either the startup patch or which one is loaded through MIDI, and it's the same kind of thing for both, so I'll show you that now. If you go into the presets thing, there's a thing that says set list. So here is the set list for my digit setup. You'll see numbers against each one, and you can add more here. So if you add another one, you have another thing, and you can go in here and then choose one of your presets. Choose 50 sci-fi because that's great. Now, this number here is what program change message you need to send to change to that particular program, and to that particular preset. Oh, all right. So I'll just see if there's any interesting questions. Okay, multiple delays with tap tempo, I'll show you that one. And blend stuff, that's one of the new modules, I'll show you that. And oh yes, this is both an interesting question and a stupid mistake on my part. Does the order that modules are added affect CPU usage? It looks like it does. It doesn't, but indeed it does look like it does. The reason for this is that basically the CPU counter is only refreshed when you add or remove a module. So on older versions of the firmware, it's actually only changed when you add a module. So sometimes you remove a module and the CPU usage doesn't go down. But the reason for that is, just that the CPU counter, the CPU usage isn't updated constantly. I'm going to change that so it's updated based on some kind of frequency. There's a few things that I do like that, which is just to basically reduce CPU usage on things that are not as priority tasks. Because mostly the CPU usage changes when you add a module. The downside of that system is that it's not necessarily an accurate representation at all times, especially because sometimes the CPU usage will say, oh, okay, it's using a ton of CPU just when it's added, but it actually then, evens down to a lot smaller amount. Oh, and if you're running before 2.43, there's a bug you'll notice if you press both foot, sometimes it'll think you're pressing both foot switches together when you're not. That's fixed in the next update. So yeah, there's a few little polishes that you might see running on this pedal, because this is actually the one I use for development. So there's a few little changes I made. I don't think any of them are particularly visually obvious though. There's a few new modules. So yes, how to set up. I'll show you how to set up tap tempo, and blending. Oh yeah, and Greg, there's a question about blending. Yeah, so I will. Yeah, I'll show you that one as well. So yeah, we've got a delay here. So So there's two ways. Either we can add another delay or we can just duplicate this one. And I'll just move my soldering iron out of the way. So you can hold on it, and then you've got the duplicate button down here. So now we've got the two delays. So now if we add a tap tempo, so to do that we can just add a foot switch. We can use any foot switch we want. Let's add A, and then hold this one, connect to the delay, connect BPM out, don't press that bit, hold this one, connect to that one, and again we'll choose BPM out. So both of them now have a tap tempo, the same tempo connected up. But to begin with, this won't be very interesting because there'll be actually the identical delay. So we'll go in here and we'll set up, we'll change this to be beats. So this number actually doesn't make any, this doesn't do anything once you've connected to tap tempo. So this is just the tempo if it's not controlled by something else. That's actually kind of a confusing thing that's pretty common in the pedal, that there's often, if you're using a control, like an external control value from another module, then the parameters in here, depending on the parameter, they're ignored. So obviously, like BPM in this case, it's just ignored because it's being overwritten. Sometimes the two parameters will be multiplied together or added together depending on what makes sense for the parameter. Like you'll see most of the more modular kind of Eurorack focused modules, they have they basically take in an external control and they have the internal one and they're added together instead of overwritten. But obviously that doesn't really make sense for tempo because you'd end up with crazy tempos. So now we'll choose them what we want them to be. So this one's over here. That's kind of tiny. So it's an eighth. And we'll choose another one to be maybe a dotted eighth. So yeah, we'll change this one to be dotted. And we'll go for, yeah, okay, so that was the dotted eighth one. We'll go for this one being just a straight normal 8, or maybe phi. I never use phi. Phi is the golden ratio. So, so there we'll have those two delays. Change the levels on those a little bit. There's not that many other weird parameters in delays apart from glide and warp. So glide is how long it takes to get to a new time. Warp is the read head position. So this will actually change the time if you change warp as well. Usually you want to modulate warp. So now we'll have these ones just both be reacting to tap tempo. If I strum my, we'll see they've got two delays there, and now I've got slower tempos on them. So one of the most confusing things for everybody and me, I'm actually probably going to temporarily remove the BPM indicator at the side here. It actually shows what the last tapped tempo is, which is not always very useful because if you're using MIDI clock, it won't actually show you anything because it only shows you what the last tap tempo was. And it'll also show you if you're tapping something that isn't connected to tap tempo, it will show you that as well. So that is, I think, a bit confusing at the moment. So I'm going to actually probably remove that until I come up with a sensible design for that. The reason it's a bit weird at the moment is that you can have multiple tap tempos. I don't know, I added that because it was a thing I could add. I don't think it's necessarily useful and it overcomplicates the interface a bit. So I think I'm going to move away from that concept. So there's a single global tempo for a patch instead of being able to have multiple tempos for different sections that are totally unrelated. It makes more sense to be able to divide tempos and have them, you know, a single tempo that's then related to other ones, even if you want to do, you know, weird polyrhythms and stuff. So blending, I'll just show you that. I'll just check if there's any other questions. Oh yeah, not this, not that. Yeah, I've fixed that issue with the D&E buttons, them going up and down. That's fixed in the next patch. Yep, so that issue, not this, not that, that's going to be fixed in the next update. The note to MIDI detection, no, that's not. It's monophonic. So yeah, it'll only be mono. And is it going to be possible to swap out a module for another one without removing the cables? Basically, no. I can't work out a way to do that without it being amazingly complicated. Because different modules have different roles for stuff. Because, like, for instance, if you've got a delay, it might have, 4 or 5, it says on here, 6. It might have 6 control inputs, and then 2 audio inputs. What happens if you change to a module that has 3 control inputs? What happens if the control inputs are different things? If you've connected up to warp, nothing else apart from this type of delay has a warp input. So if you switch them out, all of those would have to disconnect anyway. Even if it's got, and lots of modules have different numbers of just audio ins and outs. So I'm not 100% sure how that should work, apart from if they're just, it connects up the, if it's a mono one, it just connects and you can only replace it with things with 1 in audio input, 1 audio output, and control stuff is ignored. Yeah, I'm not sure what the best way to do that is, and so it's a bit fiddly to work out how to do the replace function. I would like to be able to do it. I just don't know how to do it elegantly at the moment. All right. Oh, and what was the next bit? Oh, MIDI CC is the wrong way around. Really? I have not noticed that. Maybe I broke it when I changed the poly stuff. I added poly multi-note note MIDI. Yeah, I added multiple note detection for the MIDI note to CV module, so I probably might have balls that up. I'll check. But thanks for reporting that. I'll have a look. Is there a plan for a PC editor? No. At the moment, no. Most of the UI is kind of built around the multi-touch stuff, and I kind of want to make sure that I focus most of my limited time on the stuff that on the pedal. I can understand how it could be useful, but at the moment it's not. It'd be a lot of work. And then I have to deal with making it work on different platforms, and some platforms are annoying to work with. So yeah, at the moment, sticking to just this one. Please show me how you use the Metamodulator. All right, I'll just glance if I missed anything else. Will you be able to switch between Digit and Beebo via MIDI? I don't know. Maybe a bank select message. I'm not 100% sure, because I want to allow it to take basically an arbitrary amount of time to switch between the two. just because I might want to load things and cache stuff. So I don't want to make it, people expect that it's going to be quick and it not. Of course, preset loading at the moment isn't very quick anyway, so maybe that's fine. Yeah, I haven't worked out a plan for that. Please show how you use Meta. Okay, yeah, I might get onto Meta then. Any diatonic harmony progress? No. Basically, well, I mean, obviously, there is pitch shifting in here. I haven't really heard any real-time pedal-based pitch shifting that I'm happy with the sound of so far. So I'm kind of working on trying to get something like that, but it's hard. So I suspect it's not going to be anytime soon. Yeah, I've had a look into it, and it's quite complicated. So mostly because if you want better pitch detection, you have to have more latency. And then if you want, yeah, the same with good pitch shifting. So it's hard to correlate something that can actually detect the note you're playing quickly and react quickly and also accurately and then pitch shift nicely. Yeah, so all the approaches I've used to do those kind of things only really sound good for smaller changes. But yeah, I'm looking into trying to do something vaguely usable there. Pitch shifting is definitely not my area of research or speciality, so I have to learn some more about pitch shifting to do anything in the scary maths front there. Okay. I'll get back to my next thing to show is the Metamodulator, but I'll answer these questions because they're quick. I would also like to have something like the Digitech Drop. How about some sampling and one-shot playback? Yes, that is a plan. There is going to be sampler modules and stuff like that. The very first piece of audio programming I ever did was a sampler, and my first I did a lot of tracking and stuff like that back when that was a thing. Trackers, like early samplers. Yeah, so samplers, yeah, there will definitely be at some point sampler modules. Oh, it's starting to rain. Sorry for the loud noises. I'm in a shed and it's going to rain. So yeah, definitely there's going to be samplers. It's got pretty much limitless. Well, it's got there's 2 gig of RAM, so I can have a ludicrous amount of samples in memory at the same time. So that's definitely an advantage over, other devices which would have very limited amounts of RAM, and it's really fast RAM too, DDR3. So. All right, so I'll show you a bit through the Metamodulator and how that one works. Was it asking about the Metamodulator or the Meta? Yeah, Metamodulator. All right. Yep. Metamodulator is, I'd say, one of the most, well, it's a very, very powerful module, but it's also fantastically confusing. So there's a few modules that are ports from particular Eurorack things. I'm going to keep porting and being inspired by more Eurorack gear. So yeah, the source code for Digital and Beebo are all open source. So there's a bunch of other cool open source projects that I incorporate into it. So yeah, I'll just change to Beebo because that's in the Beebo stuff. The Metamodulator is based on a Eurorack module. So I'll just go into synthesis and weird. Oh, I had to show where blend was. All right, we'll get back to that too. It'll be handy for this anyway. So here is the crazy Metamodulator of Doom. I'll just show a little bit of it, and then I'll go through and explain some of the more conventional stuff with the controls, because I think probably just starting off and explaining to people how to use controls is probably handy. So the blend module is actually called wet dry, and there's also wet dry stereo. So they'll let you blend between the two inputs, either the stereo pair of inputs or the mono inputs. And what else do I have? Oh yeah, they've got level as well, and they can take those in from controls. So you can blend if you want an interesting tremolo. I might show that after we do this Metamodulator for a little bit. Then I'll show you how to make a tremolo out of the wet dry, because that's more of a normal kind of thing. The Metamodulator is crazy and very loud, so easily. So it's probably a good idea to run a compressor after it as well. I'll drop one of them in. Because yeah, there's a lot of more adventurous distortion options in the Metamodulator, and some of them can be pretty intense. So we'll, like you've seen with a bit mangler. So we'll drop a compressor on afterwards. We'll just run. Yeah, we'll run that one on that one. So yeah, the wet dry has a wet and a dry input, obviously. So we'll just connect those guys up. I hope my fingers don't get in the way too much. I'm trying to work out how to use it without getting my fingers in the road of the camera. So we're going to connect up the dry here, and then we're going to connect up the wet, which will be the output of the compressor. And so wet. And we'll just run this one in mono, so we'll just connect this one up to these guys. And yeah, this is, so both of them have an auxiliary and an out. So the Metamodulator, because it has its own built-in oscillators, and in some of the settings you can route them as a stereo output pair, or depending on the setting, some of them can be different things. So some of them can be like, one will be the two halves of the algorithm, so maybe it's a difference. So one will be the opposite phase to the other, one will be the internal oscillator, all of those kind of things. In this case, we're just going to choose the default output. We'll ignore the other one. And so the input options are a bit confusing, because one of them is called carrier and one of them is called modulator. And basically those concepts are from things like frequency modulation. So the Metamodulator, all of the algorithms in it are that it modulates one thing against another thing. So it's basically, which is what a ring mod and stuff like that does as well. So it's got internal oscillators in it as well, but you can also just feed in to signals. So we'll use us as the carrier, and we'll keep the rest as the modulator. Because if you go into this one, you'll be able to get to different modulators. Like, so you can choose sine, saw, or triangle. You'll see that I pressed this bit twice to get into those ones. I've tried a few different UI designs for different things. So this one uses a lot of this button instead of having tabs. I'm not sure about it. And these are the main different types of modules. Depending on what your inputs are, some of these won't necessarily make sense. Even though there is a crossfader there, it doesn't work in the exact kind of same way as just the basic wet dry, whereas don't use this module for that. So we'll just connect this guy out to the outputs. And we'll do something a little bit more conventional in a sec, because this one is stark raving bonkers. So I'll just keep the level way down just to start with. So yeah, that wet dry module is pretty handy. We'll crank our compressor ratio up a little. And we'll make sure that that doesn't get real loud. I might turn that way down just to start with, and then we can try some crunchiness. This one's always kind of fun. I'm not sure how if that guitar level is vaguely hearable, but you'll see that one's now. Has some kind of fun sounds to it. But yeah, this module's really best if you want kind of more aggressive digital kind of thing, especially like some of the crossfold options. Pretty brutal. As I said. It does interact really interestingly with dynamics though. Definitely run that one into a compressor. You have got more controls over how it works here, so you can change quite a bit of the characteristics of the things. So you'll see level 1 and level 2. They're controlling the two inputs, again, because part of like in this idea with the cross-folding, you're cross-folding two signals together. But one of them can be, you can cross-fold it. You could cross-fold them against the internal oscillators or a external one. Yeah, so that's kind of fun. So you get some different tones out of that. If you want. Yeah, so the Euromat rack module, that one's based on, is called Warps. So there'll be more, if you check out the Mutable Instruments module, they've got a lot of great examples about different people doing crazy things with it. This has got all the same features, so yeah, you'll be able to achieve the same things. But, all right, I'll show you how to do some stuff with just making some tremolos, and we'll go through. We'll try and explain kind of what control is, and I'll have a look if there's any more questions. Sorry, it's hard to look at both. All right. Okay. Is there a chance of seeing marbles ported? Yes. Quite soon. Is there plans for a sequencer? Yes. There's going to be a basic, like 16-step or something, step sequencer. That one's already designed, and I'm pretty close to implementing most of it. Yeah, that's all possible, and in the plan. Well, chat is moving fast. So yeah, then I'm it'll have a basic notes mode in it, and then later on I'm thinking of making a more complicated notes sequencer. There'll be more random and controlled random ones. So I've already coded up a Euclidean sequencer. That one's going to be included soon. It's just its UI is a bit more hard to tune to get perfectly looking how I want it to look. But yeah, so there'll be a conventional sequencer and a Euclidean one. A bunch of questions about who designs all the call out icons. That's Jo. She does a bunch of the UI design on the pedal. She also, well, before this whole COVID lockdown thing, she used to help me assemble as well. So yeah, Jo does great stuff and makes things look beautiful. Is the crossfold modulating off the internal oscillators? You can choose. You can either feed in an internal one. If you feed in something into the other input, it will modulate off that, or crossfold the two signals together. Otherwise, yeah, it'll be based off. You can set the internal oscillators. You saw in that setting there was you could set it to sine, saw, or square. I think. Do I have all three? Or off, and then the input setting for that one then can change the frequency of that instead of there's a level setting. So the level setting will be changing the level or the frequency of the internal oscillator if you don't have anything plugged in. I haven't looked at the equation composer. I will have a look. Where is clouds? There's a lot of modules based off the cloud stuff. The Granular is the most obvious one. That is the basic algorithm of clouds. Can you show how to use the blend module with delay and verb in series? Yep. Does inserting an input into the modulator input of the Metamodulator turn off the internal oscillator? Yes. Actually, it depends. You can set in the on-off bits in that third menu. Okay. Are there any plans to support MIDI devices in the USB port? Yes. I don't know if it will work. It's something I'm looking into. I have to write a USB MIDI driver and then work out how that connects. The main challenge isn't going to be that. It's going to be power draw. So obviously the pedal isn't designed to power very much off the USB port. So it really depends on whether your MIDI device that's USB is bus powered or not. If it can be not bus powered, then you're probably going to be fine. Then you'll probably be safe. Or at least I will maybe be able to make that work. If it is bus powered and only bus powered, then you're going to have problems because I can't provide that much current over the USB port without needing more current from the input stage. And obviously, you know, if you can't really ask people to find a 700 milliamp or more pedal power supply. And the whole input stage isn't, the whole input power stage isn't designed for more current. So yeah, So there's a question on making a basic delay and verb in series with a blend module. Yes, a powered hub would probably fix it. I think I have a powered hub here, so yeah, maybe that would fix it. I think. I haven't tried it yet. I assume a powered hub would solve all of that. Yeah, delay and verb in series. Yeah, I'll show that, and I'll show some basic control stuff. Yes, this chat will be up on YouTube. So yeah, basic delay and verb in series. I'll also just run through a bit of the control stuff for basic things. We'll show these ones in digit. So we have our delay. So delay is kill dry. So basically, if you turn off the delay, and the easiest way to do that is to hold it, hold a foot switch, press a foot switch, hold, press foot switch. Yep. Now, if you press this foot switch, see how it's gone grey, it's off. So that actually kills the signal to the rest of the chain out. There's no signal coming out of this connection, this wire here, doesn't get any signal. So it'll be totally kill dry. So there are some modules, it's not very clear at the moment UI-wise which modules are kill dry and which ones aren't. That is something I'm trying to make look better. So the reverbs and delays are kill dry unless they have a blend option already built in, which some of them do. Also, a few people have asked about the algorithmic reverb. It's definitely a weird character reverb. I think of using the convolution ones if you want to do anything vaguely normal sounding or even pretty weird. And the algorithmic one is strictly for if you want to modulate its parameters. If you want to connect, if you're not connecting an LFO to one of its parameters, I don't really recommend using the algorithmic reverb. Its only good thing is that it reacts well to its parameters being changed. Otherwise, don't. I am contemplating adding a more, a nicer sounding conventional algorithmic reverb. I'm not 100% sure why at the moment, given that the IR reverb sounds good. But I'm thinking about it. So yes, chain turns on and off. So this means this effects here will just be on the tail of the delay. So if you put a filter here, it will just be filtering the delay. It won't be filtering your dry signal, because remember, this line is dry. This line is going to be wet. So if we want to add a reverb after the delay, so we'll go in, we'll grab our reverb. We'll just grab a mono reverb. So if we connect it this way, like that, the reverb will just be on the delays. It won't be on the main dry signal. So we'll have a listen to that. This will just be mono. I'll actually route this one into the both outs. There, we've got something in both outs now. And interestingly, I've only got the delay onto one side. So we've got that delay. Now we'll choose a reverb. We'll choose something big and obvious. Of course, my favorites are the Pull of the Black Star, because they sound amazing. So you see that there's that reverb isn't on our dry signal, it's just on that delay. So if we want to have dry signal getting reverb, we'll route to here. you'll see that there's now reverb on the dry and on the delays. Now, if you wanted to control the blend on both of those, you'd route these ones out to a blend instead of directly to the outs, to the wet-dry module. So now, because I've connected this one up to the we've still got reverb, but we don't have any delay. Now we have reverb and delay. And we can obviously connect up another foot switch to the reverb if we want to turn it on and off. And if, yeah, okay. If we turned off if we kill the reverb, if we disconnect the delay from the out, I'm trying to keep my fingers out of the way. Usually I'm less goofy. So the delay is currently connected to the reverb and the out. If we disconnect it from the out, we're only going to have so there isn't any dry delay sound now. It's only reverbed. So to make it more obvious, I might disconnect the dry to the reverb as well. Yes. Get rid of the input connected to that. See how you're hearing that reverb? But it sounds like it's only on the delays? That's kind of an interesting technique because we can like crank up the repeats here, we can change the time of that, and we could maybe filter that a little bit, and then we'll get some craziness. Crank some more level into that. See how that's kind of interesting? But obviously, the delay level, like the level of the reverb is controlling now, well, and both of them are controlling the level because it's the level of the delay going into the level of the reverb. But it does let you get some really, really interesting effects because then you can run you know, other modules that are only affecting the tail of the reverb. So that's why this system is so much more flexible than having everything pass the dry signal with it, which was, you know, a normal reverb pedal has to pass the dry and the wet because otherwise the cabling is too insane. But this kind of approach lets you do weirder stuff like that very easily. I'll just look at questions for a sec. Yeah, I love the IR verbs. Also, remember that you can capture your own stuff and put your own things in here, and different things sound good. Like, you know, you might want to grab an IR of your, you know, bathroom, and that might sound great. But you also might want to try grabbing an IR of a bucket or your mouth or something like that, and that might be interesting to see what that sounds like. Even convolving against other sounds is sometimes interesting, like, you know, convolving against dropping a pick on a particular surface or a coin on a particular surface. Some of those end up being worth trying out. So if you are going to load a bunch of IRs on, load them. There isn't an easy way to see how much space is left. That is stupid. Load them in little blocks and load them in subfolders because that makes it easier to you know, load a few folders on because that makes them easy to delete. Because it's kind of annoying if you have them in only a single, if you have them all just in the root folder, you just kind of have to slide 1,000 times to delete. It's much easier if they're all in subfolders. Yeah, load them on there, 48 kilohertz, any bit depth. Well, any vaguely normal bit depth. Oh yeah, Ben's latest video. Yep, hopefully find those IRs from him. They'll definitely. I don't know if he's shared them anywhere, but they'll definitely be really interesting. Yeah, but capture all those kind of things. And if you have any really cool IRs, it'd be great for people to share them, because it's really interesting to see what different IRs sound like. And yeah, you can use conventional spaces or more weird stuff, and that's interesting. Obviously, the longer you saw, even with some of those tubes in Ben's video, the actual length of a lot of those IRs wasn't very long. They were like 1.5 seconds, that kind of stuff, for the ones I saw. So yeah, just trim off when you get to silence, because otherwise you're just wasting a ton of CPU. The reverbs do use the longer the IR is, the more CPU they use. It's not constant. How to use controls is going to be the next thing, I think, unless there's other questions. Yeah, I don't know what other from those kind of modules. I don't know much of those ones, so I'll have to look. That question from Gunther. Yeah. No, it's not that. I definitely hope he shares them as well. I'd be really excited for those. Could I go into depth with the resonator module? It's pretty weird, but yes. So we're probably gonna just have maybe I have many units to build, so I'll probably have maybe another 15 minutes or something of stream, and then get back to the tasks at hand. Yep, so people have asked about so tape delays, there's a couple of ways to do it, depending on what tape means to you. So we'll get rid of actually we can make this sound, we can make this delay sound tapey if we want, or we can make weirder tapey. Both are relatively straightforward. So to begin with, one way we can make things more tape-ish, depending on which type of tape you want and which characteristics of tape you're interested in. I'll add a cab IR here. You are asking, why am I adding a cab? Because in the cab, if we go to other, we can choose these two different machines. There's different machines run at different input levels. The different inputs kind of change what the response of the tape is. So these are basically EQ curves of the tape, because these are cabs. So let's run this tab at +6. We'll see what level we need to run this at. Probably not very high. So yeah, we'll run at that 1/2-inch Studer machine as the cab. So that's going to change our delay sound. So yeah, we've got the first step of tapiness. So we'll just change this delay to be fully clean digitaliness, because we don't want to filter too much in here, because the cab is going to be doing all the filtering for us. I've got feedback up super high, so it's going to be obvious. So that's... oh yeah, we've still got, we'll run some dry onto the reverb as well, and the unfiltered one is currently going to the reverb, so we might crank that. We'll just drop that out of the reverb, because it'll be more obvious to hear what's going on, because currently everything sounds too amazing because it's running through the reverb. Oh yeah, to reverb. So we want to disconnect. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds a bit more conventional. So those parallel parts are kind of interesting, even if you do want to do that. So see how it's got that kind of quite a lot of filtering on those repeats. So that's one of the first ways to set up a tape. So compared to other, tape delays that aren't using tape, obviously if it's a tape delay that's actually using a tape, then it will have the real response of a tape. In this case, this is an IR of the real response of the tape, so you'll actually have the correct sound. If you want a really great sounding but amazingly inflexible delay, you can actually just have an IR of a particular machine. If you want a particular nice sounding machine, you can grab the IR of that and use either, you can use it either as a cab like this, and then you just get the EQ curve of it. So say if you've got an Echoplex or something, you can just grab the IR of that and use it like that. Or you can also just capture a couple of repeats, as many as you usually need. Just capture your normal setting on an Echoplex or Echo Rec or whatever you want, and then have that as a reverb, and load it in with the mono reverb module. That does mean you won't be able to change delay times at all, or you'll have to have different IR files for different delay times, but it means it will be very accurate to the original machine. It will accurately capture any of the, the variation between each of the repeats and stuff like that. Obviously it'll be constant, so it'll be the same each time you hit it, unlike a tape machine, but it will be quite nice sounding. So that's also an option. It's very inflexible then, compared to the normal delay machines, or the normal delay options here. So if you want to add a little bit of warble or something into that, the way to do that is add a control. So controls are pretty magic, and you should use them all over the place. So there's lots of them. Something weird is that in the normal two fingers connecty mode, multi-touch connect mode, you can connect control to control or audio to audio. If you go into the advanced connection mode, you can actually interconnect audio and control if you want to get into weirdness. That's really for the more Eurorack people who are used to being able to connect anything to anything. That is possible with the pedal. So let's connect this delay, this LFO to this delay and connect it to warp. Warp's the most popular target. You can connect it to other stuff though. So let's connect it into here. And let's turn this way down, the level of this, because otherwise it will be stark roving bonkers. And now okay, so we've got warble here, and realistically we've got too much warble, so let's turn the level of that down quite a bit. So delay can be really considerably over the top when it comes to its warble. Luckily, you can turn up glide, which will smooth that. Okay, that's a little bit nicer now. That's obviously a sine wave that's changing. We can change to random to just give it, hey, this tape machine is crazy. It hasn't had a service in way too long. So we can get pretty. See how you're getting some randomness in the repeats there. This shape mod actually does smooth the random one, so you don't even have to worry about, well, having the blend up does help. The glide, I mean. But the shape mod also does smooth the randomness out. So there's a lot of other ways to smooth things and change how controls work as well. Yep. So drums and tapes and stuff, it's definitely, if you grab different IRs, you can definitely, have all of them. And again, just change how the things are modulated over time. So you can, of course, modulate the time to get warble effects, but you can also modulate other things like levels and tempos. Level and the filtering of them. So if you're going to modulate things in here, if you're modulating the tone, if you have a really dark repeat, then there isn't anything to repeat for the next repeat, really, because you've already filtered out all that signal. So if you're modulating a filter, if you put it after just on the repeats, as modulating a filter that's after the delay, it'll be very different than modulating the tone that's built in. There'll be very different types of modulation. So it's worth changing the order of things and trying different orders there. I'll go into more detail about things you can do with the LFOs. Obviously, there's a lot of features here. If there's a time that you want to make them less adventurous, like if they're too strong, you definitely just turn down the level. If you want to invert the phase of them, just turn the level to the opposite direction. If you get the level, now see the levels into the negative, that just means the phase is inverted as well as the level. You can also run them into an attenuverter to pull them down. If you you can multiply two of them together to ring mod them. All of those things are possible. So, you can really get a lot of stuff going on with all of them. So you can pretty much do anything you want on that front. Multi-head tape, you just add more delays. So if you need multiple delays, just add more delays. The different delay engines, different delay modules are pretty, they kind of approach different things. So, like, they'll have weird side, like this one is the conventional, this one that's just called delay is the conventional, it does normal things. And then the other ones, their alternative modes are strange, mostly around the way that they correlate delay time with quality. So it's purposely designed that you get interesting degradation in the middle, which is good for bit crushy kind of delay sounds. The resonator module, I don't think I'm probably going to have time at the moment. The main thing to remember with the resonator module is send a trigger. Then you can get some really fun sounds out of it. You want to trigger the resonator with something else. So I'd recommend running one of the drum pattern generators into the resonator, and then it's fun. Run audio into it as well, and you get some fun examples. There's a preset called Reso Groove or something along those lines in the Beebo section. That's a good example of that. Can you tap tempo clock the other delays? No. The other delay types, their concept of time is very confusing. So you can't really tap tempo them because they don't have a clear concept of time like this one does. Because there's multiple parameters that control time for the other delays. Because there's tape speed and tape length. So tape speed and tape length, together they come to an answer of what the delay time is, but they don't individually. So there isn't an individual time input on that delay. So as you run the tape faster, you'll get higher quality repeats. Obviously, you can have perfect quality repeats if you want with the delay. This is purposefully modeling this degradation. But the cute idea is that if you run the tape very slow, it starts to degrade the repeats in an interesting way. So that's actually modeling how a real tape would degrade the quality of repeats because it has less, magnet bits to record stuff. So yeah, if you run the tape, if you run a short piece of tape, you get different lengths of delay time, and as you run a slower piece of tape, you get lower quality. Until you run the tape, it almost stopped, and you know it's obviously then it's a mush of interesting distortion. The good thing about this is that it's fun to modulate then because you go through that period of crunchiness in and out of it, which is why that one's designed for modulation. And that's why it exists outside the normal one. Yeah, so I can go through some of the more synthy modules probably in the next stream. I think maybe next time I'm also going to go through some of the basics of just how to do different stuff with controls. So yeah, there's a lot you can do by modulating other stuff. So like, obviously we've got this delay here. If we added effects just on this, the bit afterwards, we can get some really fun effects on that delay. And we can modulate some of those in interesting ways. Reverse is obviously pretty high on my list of favorites. But you can put things like just a basic tremolo on afterwards. I can show how that is done. And tremolo is obviously one of the easiest ones for controls, and kind of it's hearing how it sounds. So there's two ways we could do that. We can either do it. Whoops! I shouldn't be mashing random things. I don't need a mono EQ. Tremolo is one of the easiest ones. There's two ways we could do it. Delete that guy. There's two ways we can do tremolo, either with a VCA, which is the normal kind of way, or we could do it with a blend. I'm gonna show it with a blend, just of the wet dry blend, just because I haven't done it that way before. So we'll have all of these pretty things hanging out over here. So I've still got some. Sorry, this is starting to look a bit busy. I'm not sure if I should just start with a new clean patch, or if I should just go weird and have too many things on screen at once. Alright, so we have this LFO, and we connect it up to this wet dry, and now we can modulate blend if we want, which is kind of fun. So we can have weird tremolos where you're blending in and out your wet dry, or you can just modulate the level and have a conventional kind of tremolo. So let's modulate the wet dry. And we'll probably go back to a sine to start with. We don't care about phase. So now we route some stuff into this. This is marginally annoying because you'll have to, disconnect things from here to there. So maybe we'll modulate this reverb. Let's try that. Out. Every time I do this, I do think, yeah, maybe you should be able to disconnect multiple ones at once. So yeah, instead we'll put that reverb over here. So it's a bit clearer. This is running out from the clear input into this one. From the dry input, I mean. Connect those two guys together. That was really, really close together. Hold that one. And route it into the wet. Do we want to write? Yeah, okay. I'll see how this sounds. We'll just crank this guy down so he's not confusing us. That's not doing anything interesting, is it? Boring. Let's chuck the dries in there as well. It's really hard to use this on camera with moving my fingers like this, but hopefully you get the rough idea. Alright, so connect them up to the This isn't being as exciting as I thought there. Sometimes you try different shapes and things, then it's not all that, you know, entertaining. That's legitimately not doing anything fun at all. Alright. Forget about this one. Let's chuck that into a VCA instead. We'll see if that's more interesting. Here's a VCA under controls. So we'll run that reverb into the VCA. Hold this guy, press this guy. Just wait. Yeah, that's more entertaining. See how there's a tremolo now just on our reverb. We've got reverb parallel to it, so it's not too strong as well. So yeah, basically now I'm tremoloing just the reverb tail. but it's also in parallel, so there's actually there's still dry of it, so it's actually doubling up in volume there. But that's not too bad because it just means that it doesn't dip as far when the tremolo, doesn't drop all of the tremolo out. So there's some kind of control-y stuff. Oh, synthesis weird. Oh, okay. How do you turn on advanced connection mode? It just means that you go into the so normally you'll connect by using 2 fingers. If you instead go into here and you press this connect button, that's how you get into advanced connection mode. And then you can connect anything to anything, control or CV. Strange weird section. All of them should have the strange weird section in them. Oh, synthesis weird section. Yeah, that should be in anything vaguely recent. Yeah, if you don't have synthesis and weird, update your firmware. It's been in there for, I don't know, 5 or 6 firmware updates, I think. All right. If there's any last minute other questions, otherwise I think it's probably time for me to get back to assembling units. Oh, somebody asked how I'm going with getting them done. Okay. I mean, obviously it's a bit challenging here in Melbourne's still in stage 4 lockdowns. Things are still pretty you're not allowed to go outside very much. So yeah, I'm working from my garage, which is obviously limiting room and ability to do stuff. But it's going pretty well. I've got the environment kind of pretty comfortably set up now. Yeah, it's going well. There's some nice little extra bits here. I'll see if I can get this out of the way. So the soldering environment just over here. Then we've got some units that are out of focus over there. They're tops that are assembled and ready to be put together. Then we have on my audio interface, but some boards ready to be put together into things over there. So yeah, you saw the soldering iron and microscope over the side. So yeah, the microscope's for soldering the tiny things. And then at the moment I just have it, you'll see that there's random tons of things because I'm just soldering a lot of jacks. I've just been soldering lots of these guys. But yeah, it's going pretty well. Getting through units pretty quickly now. I've improved the packing process and stuff like that, so there's just a few bits that are getting faster. And I've been getting my wonderful housemates to help out as well, so that's been good because there's a lot of restrictions obviously about getting people that you don't live with to come and work at the moment. How many soldering connections are there per unit? There are a couple of 100 components, and some of them have a lot of pins. Like some of them have hundreds of pins. So there are many connections. So it's not. It does take a little while. But it's not. It's not. The soldering actually isn't the main. There's a lot of bits that take time. Just there's the assembly process. So soldering, assembly. There's soldering of the different parts. Obviously the foot switches and the encoder boards. Then there's the main board. Then there's a few other modules. Then there's all of this gets put together. Then tested. So yeah. So there's a lot of little bits in there. So I do blocks of each thing. Like as you saw, there's a bunch of tops done over here. There's like bunches of encoders done. I'll see if I can get to some. Here are some of the encoder boards. So there's these little little circuit boards that have the encoders on them. So I solder up these, put the encoders in there. So that just means I can assemble the top of the enclosure with the switches and the encoders and knobs into it, separate from the rest, and then they get stuck together at the end. Screw them together, and then I every single one of them, you'll see there's a ton of flash drives. I use these little USB flash drives. I like them. They don't have any annoying expandy mechanisms, so they never break. I update the firmware on every one of them before I ship them out, just to make sure that the USB ports work. That's part of the QA test. And yeah, run through the built-in QA testing environment, which just tells me if everything works all right. Press the plus button down at the bottom. Why should I press the plus button at the bottom? Yeah, if you've got 2.43, you definitely should have the weird section. Yeah, that's how you add modules. So yeah, press the plus button and you'll get to being able to add modules. Ah, Leon is in the comments. Leon is the maker of great presets and just doing wonderful things with the pedal. He makes everything sound good. So if you actually want to hear the pedal sounding good, listen to Leon do good things with it. Yeah, so that's how you add things. You'll see all of these. These are the sections. Input output's basically anything to do with the MIDI in and out. Oh, I didn't show anything about MIDI. Okay, regular questions are to do with MIDI. All right, I might have 5 minutes on MIDI before I end this stream. Yeah, all right. I meant to say something about MIDI and I've totally forgot. Yeah. So, no, I'm going to have a minute or two on explaining MIDI, and then we'll be... I got distracted with the other one, sorry. Yeah, we'll have a minute or two of MIDI, and then I'll be done. All right. This will be the very speedy intro to how to use MIDI. So, this preset's already too confusing. Let's load something basic. Or let's load Leon's presets, because his ones sound great. So let's load 50 sci-fi. A wonderful preset from Leon, which looks really straightforward, but it sounds great. So got a foot switch here, and we've got the twist delay. Bunch of fun modulatable presets. Set to ping pong, yeah, in modes. The twist delay does great sounding stuff. Yeah, fun times. I love that preset. So if we want to have it MIDI controlled, obviously I don't actually have anything plugged in at the moment, but I'll show you how to set it up. Next stream I might set up a couple of other pedals and show you how to do MIDI in and out, and how to control other stuff, and how to send the internal LFOs to another pedal. But I'll do a brief bit of this. So if we want to control something on it from CC, we'll add a MIDI CC connector. So you want to connect the MIDI in to the MIDI CC in, and then you've just got a normal control value output that acts just like all the other control values, and you connect it up just like an LFO or anything. So yeah, this is going to be the parameters. You can shape it a little bit by controlling what its minimum and maximum is, and whether it's logarithmic or not, and you set its CC in here. And these nicely now scroll by whole numbers. So just scroll them by whole numbers. I admit it shouldn't show the 3 decimal points at the bottom. That is bonkers. But yep, so you can just connect that up like you would anything else. You can then also modify that just as the output of that, because it's just a normal control value, just like all our other ones. So you can, squish it, rectify it, do anything, add it to things, do any of the other things you do with the control value using all of the control options. You can also use it to trigger something or control a sample hold module or any of those things with it. But all right. MIDI clock in, we'll just add a MIDI clock in and then you can connect it up to the delays. A confusing thing is that it doesn't change the tempo at the corner because that just shows you the tap tempo. MIDI clock out, well, you just you just choose a BPM. You can choose a tap tempo to that as well. CV to MIDI CC, this one's for the out stuff. So obviously you're going to connect that to the MIDI out, and you want to connect an LFO or something, any of the controls things, to that. You could add a foot switch to it if you just want to change foot switches. You can connect an envelope follower to it, obviously, if you want to. Maybe you want to make one of your other pedals into maybe you've got an analog gain pedal and you want to turn it into a compressor, or send an envelope follower to a CC, and then you can make your Chase Bliss Brothers into a compressor. I think it really depends on how much it smooths the input. I mean, the external press, depending on what the external pedal does for MIDI and how quickly it reacts to it and how quickly it smooths it, will depend on whether it will work actually as a compressor in that case. But you could make it into a tremolo very easily by adding an LFO. So if we just drop in an LFO, like so, we've got an LFO into there. Now we can route this CC to anything in MIDI, and we'll be able to control anything in MIDI from this LFO. Obviously in here you want to set what CC number you're wanting to control and what channel. Channels now correctly count from 1, they didn't earlier. So that's the basics of the MIDI stuff. I showed you how to change programs from MIDI. That's getting MIDI in and out and clock in and out. So that's the very, very quick version of MIDI. I will definitely go over that in more detail. Can you modify the MIDI clock using maths modules, the actual tempo? Not at the moment. That's actually one of the next things on more ways to modify tempo is actually right very close to the top of my to-do list. Also very close to the top of my to-do list is... Are we running Beebo? No. There's a few other things. Yeah, that's right near the top of my to-do list. I've just fixed up a couple of those bugs, like the foot switch bug. The other thing that's right near the top is a few new modules. And there's a few things that I'm planning on adding at some point in the not too distant future, like maybe this beat slicer. But that one still needs a bit more work. Cool. I think that's pretty much everything. If anybody has any last minute questions, ask them now. Otherwise, I think that will be the end of today's stream. Is there any last minute coherent things? Hopefully that was all relatively clear. If this stuff is useful, I'll contemplate doing this again in the future. Just, I might try and just get a few of the questions beforehand, just so I can think a bit through what I'm going to babble about, so it's a little bit more directed. So yeah, good to have everybody on. Good to chat. thanks for dropping in. And yep, I will. Oh yeah, and oh yes, the last most important thing. If you go into settings and export preset, you can export your current one or all of your presets. If you make any good presets, please share them. So just put a USB drive in, share it, zip it up, send it to people. Share some of those good presets that people make. You know, we can't just rely on Leon to make great presets. But, yep, thanks for this. Hope you enjoyed the stream, and we will chat next stream. Oh yeah, patch storage is where I've put them on at the moment. I don't know anything about Reddit or anything like that. If you find another place that is better than patch storage, go for that. But there's a patch storage section already.